Today I want to talk about this current slump that the housing market is in, and I want to talk about things that people are feeling about it. I want to talk about the expert opinions on what's happening, and I also want to talk about the data and show you guys and prove to you once again that this housing market is not nearly as strong or resilient as the news likes to paint it. They just keep focusing on how the median home price is going up, but they don't really dig any deeper than that to find out why, what's going on, and how healthy the market actually is, and that's what we're gonna do in this video. So one thing that you already know, because I've already covered this on the channel, is that this spring/summer home selling season has been basically non-existent. You know, this has been the worst home selling season on record since they started keeping track, which to me right away is just proof of how bad things are, but a lot of people need to see more proof than that. One thing that a lot of economists and people in the government, just like in yesterday's video, how they're celebrating that the inflation rate is down to 3%, is a lot of these guys are celebrating the anticipation of mortgage rates coming down before the end of the year. Because if there is a Fed rate cut this year, which is starting to look more likely that there may be one, then there's a strong possibility that we might see mortgage rates fall before the year's over. But if that were to happen, we're not going to see massive movements in mortgage rates. We're going to see it go down incrementally, maybe down to 6.5% by the end of the year if we're lucky. And right now, hovering around 7%, that basically does nothing for affordability, which likely is not going to make the housing market budge a single inch. So we already know for a fact that the April and May sales numbers for existing homes is much lower than it was a year ago, and it's already on track that it's looking like June will also be in the same category, which we'll probably get those numbers pretty soon. And of course, the other problem that we've heard about with the housing market over the past couple of years, and a lot of markets are still facing this problem, is low inventory. However, low inventory is not an issue everywhere anymore. In fact, there's been a lot of markets that have recovered to close to or at pre-pandemic levels of inventory already. Nationally, we're about 25% under pre-pandemic levels, but it has been rising, and it's reasonable to think that within another maybe year and a half, we might be back to pre-pandemic levels of inventory nationwide. Now, obviously, the biggest problem with real estate is pricing. In fact, in May, according to the National Association of Realtors, the median home price hit an all-time high at $419,300, and that also shows us that the home prices have gone up 51% from just 5 years ago. And the odds of it coming back down 51% over the next 5 years are pretty low, but anything is possible. But now that you guys understand the conditions of the current housing market, let's take a look at how consumers feel about it. Because there was a consumer sentiment survey from Fannie Mae. They do this every month, and they try to get a gauge of how people are thinking and feeling about the housing market. The Fannie Mae Home Purchase Sentiment Index rose 3.2 points in June to 72.6. That's another thing that you hear about, and you hear these data points and they use that to celebrate as if this is good news, guys, because it still means that only 19% of people say that it's a good time to buy a house. And it's funny also that this uptick in the amount of people saying it's a good time to buy also coincides with the fact that it is the home buying season right now. And in general, more people are looking to buy a house at this time of year than any other point in the year. You also have the amount of people who believe it's a good time to sell go up slightly to 66%, where it was 64% before. And you also have more people believing that mortgage rates and home prices would go up over the next 12 months, which is kind of funny that a lot of people think it's a good time to buy. The only logical conclusion you can draw from that is that must mean the people who think it's a good time to buy, which is only 19% of the whole country, must think that home prices and mortgage rates will go up in the future, so therefore it's better to buy today than to wait. Basically the FOMO mentality. Now, there is one good piece of news out of this survey, which is that the amount of people who believe that their job security is in danger actually dropped, because now 79% of people believe that they have a strong position right now when it comes to their job, and that's an increase of 4 percentage points compared to May. You know, it was only 75% in May. So more people are feeling good about the job they have right now. But I'm a little bit worried that these people have a false sense of hope, right? Because we're seeing the unemployment numbers go up. And in fact, it's getting to the point where it's worrisome for the Fed, where they may actually consider cutting the rates in September, because we know that unemployment tends to spike once it goes up this much so quickly. But yet more people are feeling good about their position, maybe because they're like, well, I've seen a lot of people lose their job, but so far I haven't, so maybe that increases their confidence. And I don't know the exact reasons, I'm just guessing at maybe why people feel this way. But all in all, what this survey from Fannie Mae shows is that there's going to be little upside in this economy or in this housing market until there is some progress made on affordability, guys. And how do we get housing to be more affordable? Well, the easiest way is going to be for prices to come down, especially with how much property taxes have increased because of these skyrocketing evaluations, with how much insurance costs have increased nationwide. And buying a house and just maintaining a property costs far more than it ever used to, guys. In fact, I did a video on this last week showing you that the average homeowner right now is spending close to 50% of their income just to maintain their house, meaning pay the mortgage, pay the taxes, pay the insurance, pay the upkeep. So until that situation gets better, which to me the only way it can get better is a massive drop in prices, because nothing else can really fix it. Until that gets better, we're not going to see people rush back in to buy houses, even if interest rates start coming down, because even once that happens, it's still going to do very little for affordability. And I will give you guys some more information on this later in this video. But here's another troubling stat from this survey. The percentage of respondents who say their household income is significantly higher than it was 12 months ago decreased from 20% down to 16%. So it means that fewer and fewer people are getting the cost of living increase that they need on their salary to keep up with life right now. Even when it was better, still only was 20% of the people who answered this survey were making significantly more, meaning that they're going to be able to keep up with the lifestyle and the inflation. Well, what about the other 80%, guys? That means everybody else is not included in this, and now it's even fewer than that. Now it's 84% of people are not getting the raises they need to keep up with inflation. And even more worrying, considering inflation numbers are in and it went up 3% year over year, the percentage of people who say their household income is about the same increased from 67% to 72%, meaning that more and more people are just seeing their pay remain flat while simultaneously your expenses and the cost of living go up. How is that a good thing? It isn't, and it also means that the likelihood of seeing people rush back into the housing market if interest rates were to drop is very low, because people are just trying to keep up with their regular bills, with their life right now, let alone go out and buy another house. So this brings me to the part of the video that I've been waiting to get to and wanting to show you guys, because it proves that this housing market is not as strong as we're being led to believe. Because like I said in the beginning, the media and the real estate industry focuses on the fact that, well, home prices are hitting at record highs still, and the median home price continues to go up according to the National Association of Realtors and according to the Case-Shiller Home Price Index. So this must mean the housing market's doing great. Well, no, and here's why. Right now, when we look at the resale market, the amount of homes on the market for sale, when you look at the price ranges from 100,000 to 500,000, that's where the lowest amount of supply is, which coincidentally, that's the price range that, 90% of the population can afford, right? But supply is increasing across the board. We're seeing the amount of supply go up across the nation right now in most markets. But to show you how bad this is, there's only a 2.7 month supply of homes for sale between $100,000 and $250,000, but there's a 4.2 month supply of homes for sale that are $1 million or over. What this explains and what this shows you is that the homes that are being listed and sold are mostly on the higher end of the market. This data is even reflected in the National Association of Realtors data, and it's the homes on the higher end of the market that continue to sell, guys. Why? Because that's what's available, and only people that can afford those homes are buying them. You're not seeing a large number of home sales happen on the lower end because people who own those homes are hanging on to them for dear life right now because they can't sell them. They have nowhere else to go if they do. That's where you're seeing this lock-in effect happen, and it's causing two things to happen. It's causing fewer homes for sale on the market that are affordable, that people can actually buy, and it also makes the median home price go up artificially higher than it would because it's keeping those home sales out of the market while only the higher end of home sales are hitting the market. So that makes the median home price go up. Even though it's not a true reflection of the health of the market, that's what people are looking at to say that things are great. And this is also why home prices remain high, because whatever is selling on the higher end of the market, and because there's so low inventory on the low end of the market, people are still able to command higher prices for those type of homes. So there's just this huge imbalance right now that is making things look better than they really are, and also making things worse for people who are in the market to buy. This is also why you're seeing places like Rockford, Illinois, where I was at with my family, you're seeing home prices there continue to go up because there's so few homes for sale. When one does come up, people tend to overbid it still. And also that's possible because the home prices are still low enough where they can be overbid. It's not crazy expensive like it is here. But you can see in certain markets across the country, most notably like in Texas and in Florida, where the inventory has absolutely exploded. Not only is the inventory at pre-pandemic levels, but the pricing of those homes is now also at pre-pandemic levels. So now you've heard the facts of what's going on. You've heard my opinion and my explanation of why home prices still remain stubbornly high and why the data supposedly looks good. But what do the experts think? I'm always curious to hear what they have to say, to see how closely aligned with reality it is or how far out of whack with reality it is. So according to an economist from CoreLogic, one prediction from them is that they think home prices are going to rise another 5.7% this year, up from the 3.9% it went up in 2023, despite high interest rates and affordability challenges. Well, what they're referring to is not really home prices going up. What they're referring to is a lot of sales happening on the high end of the market and not really many sales happening on the low end of the market, making it look like prices are going up. That's what I interpret this as. So that's how this prediction comes true in my book. It comes true by just keeping so few homes for sale on the market in the low end that all we see are the higher end sales. Another economist, Odetta Cushy, said that an increase in for sale inventory and a pullback in demand due to high prices and limited affordability will cause price growth to decelerate, meaning that we're going to see prices come down. I actually think this is the end game too. We just don't know the timeline of how long this is going to take. In some markets it's already happening because the supply is back but the demand isn't. So it kind of depends on where you live on how fast this is going to happen. Here we have Lawrence Yunn's prediction. He is the chief economist at the National Association of Realtors, and I can already tell you, I think he's going to be way wrong on this one because he said that U.S. home sales will rise in 2024 and in 2025, reaching pre-COVID levels by 2026. I don't know how he's gathering that conclusion because the sales are the worst that they've been since they started keeping track at the National Association of Realtors right now. So I don't know how he thinks that they're going to continue to go up this year and over the next couple of years, especially since the home selling season is already over. His forecast is that 5 million new and existing homes will sell this year, which is up from the 4.8 million we saw in 2023. And he says we'll see nearly 6 million homes sell in 2025. So I don't know, guys, this sounds to be the most ambitious prediction I've heard in a long time about the housing market. Now, last year, economists forecasted that mortgage rates would fall from an average of 6.8% for a 30-year loan to just above 5% this year. Well, that forecast and prediction was way off, obviously, because they haven't budged since then. And now none of the economists are forecasting where mortgage rates are going to be in a year from now because they got it so wrong last year. And if you want to know why this is set to be the worst year of home sales ever, it's because the average mortgage payment for a typical home buyer is up 82% from where it was before the pandemic. 82% increase in the mortgage payment, okay? Now think about this. Earlier we talked about how the home prices went up 51% pre-pandemic until now, okay? Nationwide went up 51%. But the actual payment itself went up 82%. Because when you combine exploding prices with higher interest rates, that makes the payment go up more than anything. which is completely unsustainable and unaffordable. And it also shows you that if the interest rates come down by a little bit, it won't be enough to reverse this trend. And the other thing you have to look at is the fact that 42% of people in the US own their homes free and clear with no mortgage, so they're unaffected by today's mortgage rates, okay? They're not looking to get a mortgage, and they already have their mortgage paid off. And guess what? Most people that have those homes paid off are in the baby boomer generation, which is the generation that's gonna see a massive sell-off in the homes that they own over the next several years. Because once they pass away, they're either going to have their heirs inherit that property, which 75% of those people will sell it, or it will just get sold right away before they even pass away. So all this means that these trends that we're seeing right now will not last forever. They just won't. The data doesn't support it. The demographics don't support it. The only thing that could change it is if the immigration continues on this path that we've seen, where you just have millions upon millions of people continue to pour into this country year after year, and that might be enough to absorb that baby boomer sell-off in the future, but that's yet to be seen. Here's another interesting prediction I read from Richard Barkham. He is the chief economist for CBRE, and he said that the downturn in the office market will not implode the economy because banks have reserves to buffer from the real estate losses. So that's why we've seen so many banks go under over the past couple of years, because they have reserves to buffer those losses. So far, that hasn't been true. He even says that don't expect a wave of defaults. If buildings are generating income, then banks will extend and pretend, meaning they'll extend the loans despite any potential financial distress. Well, they can only do that for so long, guys. I mean, a lot of banks are doing that right now to try to keep their tenants in place, but how long can they offer interest rates that are not keeping up with inflation? Then these banks are the ones taking the hit ultimately. How long can or will they be willing to do that for? So in my opinion, pretty much all of these economist predictions are out of touch with reality, except for Odetta Cushy talking about how we're going to see less and less people buy. Simultaneously, the inventory continue to rise, and that ultimately will bring prices down. Is it going to bring it down by the 51% it went up, guys? Probably not. But I think it's fair to expect at least a 15 to 20% drop, which is better than nothing over the next couple of years. But that's just a guess. Nobody really knows what will happen in the end. If COVID taught us one thing, it's the fact that there can be curveballs in life and the economy, and you just don't really know what will happen next. We can all sit here and make our biggest predictions, but predictions are just made to fail. But I like reading the expert predictions because it gives you an insight into what high-level people in society think is actually going on and how out of touch with reality most of them are. So if you enjoyed this video, make sure you subscribe to the channel, and if you don't want to wait for my next video to come out, check out this one on the screen right over here, and I'll see you in the next one.